Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Creativity Marketing Centre event. We're delighted to see a lot of our students and some guests from outside the school, so welcome to everyone. Really delighted to kick off this new year with the new MMK class at the Creativity Marketing Centre. What is the Creativity Marketing Centre, you might ask? It is a platform that we started probably about 10 years ago to bring together not just our students, but also our alumni, scholars, academics from throughout the UK and beyond. And of course, our corporate partners. We are sponsored by L'Oréal, and I take this this opportunity to thank L'Oréal. Is there anyone from L'Oréal here? For their generous funding through the L'Oréal professorship, of which I am absolutely honored to be the representative. We look at creativity marketing. What is creativity marketing? It's really the intersection of creativity and analytical thinking. We are constantly pushing the envelope on how can you be more creative, use data in a more creative way to perform better, to get brands to be more effective out there. And this leads us to tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is storytelling in the attention economy. And I think it's a particularly fitting topic for us here at the Creativity Marketing Centre. The attention economy recognizes the constraints of, humans' cognitive ability to process information. We don't have enough brain cells to process more information than a certain amount, and we don't have enough time. So what do we creativity marketers do? We have to be particularly creative to bring stories and content and ideas and images and so on that are really going to capture that attention. So I believe that's what tonight is going to be about. I want to thank Chloe Priest for organizing the event. Chloe, as you'll know, is our new director of the MSc in Marketing and Creativity, and she did a great job at inviting some lovely guests, and we're really looking forward to the discussion tonight. So, Chloe, thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Marie. So just to reiterate, welcome to everyone. Thank you for being with us here tonight. It's really a pleasure to host this panel with very illustrious guests, which I'm very thankful for them for coming and joining us this evening. I'll introduce them very briefly, and then I'll let them kind of say a little bit more about their research and their work. Next to me, we have Professor Finola Kerrigan, who is the Deputy Dean at Birmingham Business School. She's a professor of marketing, and she teaches and researches marketing and consumption in all forms. But her work has particularly focused on the intersection between the arts and marketing, and more specifically film. So she's edited various collections on film marketing, and I think is working on the next version, right?
Yes.
Next to Finola, we have Samantha Glynn. She's the European lead for UTA, so United Talent Agency, Entertainment and Culture Division, responsible for creating entertainment opportunities for brands across the region. She's based in London, but drives branded entertainment activities for UTA across multiple territories, and she'll tell us a little bit about that later. And prior to this, she was the global SVP of branded entertainment at production giant Fremantle, where she oversaw all sorts of brand partnerships with global advertisers across various television properties. So anybody who's watched kind of Idols, X Factor, Got Talent, she was responsible for the brands you saw in them. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll see. We'll come to it. And then finally, we've got Katerina Stolli, who's a lecturer and doctoral researcher in the Department of Marketing at Birmingham Business School. Her doctoral research is focused entirely on branded entertainment, trying to kind of unpick, and we'll talk about it later, it's very complicated, what exactly branded entertainment is, how it lies at the intersection of cultural production, consumption, branding, marketing communications, and ethics. So looking at these kind of blurred lines between entertainment and marketing. So please join me in thanking them for joining us tonight. So maybe to start off, if you can all kind of, I've introduced you very broadly, but if you can say a little bit more about why I invited you here tonight and why you why you think this is a relevant topic or not at all. Finola, do you want to start?
Okay, thanks, Chloe. Well, I don't know if you know, but it's National Storytelling Week, which I think is a good opportunity for having this event. But I think that the reason Chloe invited me was for probably 20 years, I've been doing research that's very much about connecting audiences to stories. So I'm really interested in how you kind of get interesting stories out into the world and how you get people to watch them. And the reason I'm interested in that was, I think I don't know, I love film, I've always loved film, and I started increasingly as I went through my studies to make film central in studies that didn't necessarily seem like film was central. So I did my master's on European integration, so European law, sociology, economics, and politics, and I want to focus on the role of the film industry in unifying people across the European continent, something that would be very relevant if not for Brexit in this context. And I think kind of, from then on, I was really focused on this. And one of the things that I saw, I went and worked in the media program in Brussels, a program that's aimed at developing the film industry. I had worked in marketing to earn money, and then I worked in my true passion, kind of on the verge, around the film industry. And what I saw there was that one of the biggest problems was marketing. Was that you had all these great films and great ideas, particularly in Europe, but connecting the filmmakers to the ultimate audience was a massive problem. So for the next 20 years, I've wandered around this problem in various ways, and yeah, I suppose that's why I'm here. Thanks.
Hi, well, I'm Samantha Glynn, and I tell you how I got into branded entertainment. Back in, 2005, I got a phone call, and I'd worked on channel launches, and the person who called me said, "We've got this new TV channel launching. This is the universe before YouTube. It's going to be on 24/7 on Sky, and it's for Audi, the car brand, and it's going to be called the Audi Channel." I'm like, what is this? And it's going to be broadcast on Sky. And we've got 3 months to launch it. So that's what we did. And suddenly I was thrown into the world of branded entertainment. And we created a TV channel in which every single program on it had an Audi in it. So it was a test drive in an Audi, it was a talk show in an Audi, it was a travelogue in an Audi, or it was just something that had Vorsprung durch Technik in the context and the meaning. So that was my deep dive into branded entertainment, and then I've never left this industry because I think it's fascinating. Since 2005, so much has happened. The digital universe has exploded. We've stopped watching ads. We've had the streamers appear, and brands are finding it more and more difficult to reach consumers in the same way that they have over the previous decades. So the most obvious way is to put a brand inside content, but to create content that consumers are going to look for actively rather than being spoken to by a brand. And I'm such a champion for this discipline. I've worked in a production company, I've worked for a creative agency, I've gone back to a production company, and now I'm working for a talent agency. So I'm seeing this respect and need for branded entertainment across different sectors of the industry, and it's been really interesting taking my skills from one part of the industry to the next and realizing they're exactly the same, and it's the same problems and the same solutions, but just different ways of implementing them.
Hello everyone, thanks again Chloe for having me. I'm Katerina. So with me it started a bit differently. So I used to work in a talent agency back in I think 2007. So I was responsible for placing actors into films. And basically what I saw then was like a short movie of two of our actors back then. And I was like, hold on, this is something that's very interesting and I haven't really seen before. So basically it was a brand that took two of our actors and did a short movie, and it was like about the relationship of siblings. And the brand's name was like, do you say that in English? Blood siblings, something like that. So it was it was beautifully, it was very like kind of cinematic. It was like a 5 minutes piece. It was like beautiful scenes of like an intimate relationship between a brother and a sister. So basically that really reflected of what the brand was about, or the brand's name. And I was like, that's really, really interesting. So I worked at the talent agency for a couple of years, took a step back, went into music and some other industries, and then I went to university because I was like, let me just study something on top of that. But throughout my years at university, I was always focusing on film. Like my undergrad was in business management, but my dissertation was around the 4 Ps, so very basic, and how German Generation Y would choose films. And then I came across a book from Vinola, so that was my foundation. My master's then was in consumer behavior, and again, like a lot of work focused around film, so I wrote my essays on Netflix, for example, and my master's dissertation was, again, about film choice, but it was about the dark triad. I don't know if you heard about it. It's about subclinical narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism, and how that influences film choice.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, I wanted to do something fun and challenge myself and go into quantitative research. I'm a qualitative researcher, which wasn't the best idea, I would say, but it was fun nevertheless. And then back then my program director was like, because I told him I was considering doing a PhD, but I wasn't sure. And then he was like, oh, I've got this colleague who's looking for, you know, a PhD student, which happened to be Finola. So I was very nervous, met her like in 2012, I think. No, 17, sorry. I'm back. And yeah, so since then I've started my PhD. I'm in the phase of writing up now, which is, I think, the most painful phase of a PhD. So I'm trying to, wrap everything up, but it's been a great journey. And yeah, so my dedication is now to really understand branded entertainment. So what I've seen in the past, really understanding what is branded entertainment, how is it different from all the other terms that we hear around branded content, product placement, advertainment, and so on. Yeah, and obviously also linked to that, the art versus commerce, and the ethics around branded entertainment.
Thank you. Katerina, you've kind of taken us in the direction I want us to go, so that's perfect. Because I stupidly wanted to call this event Branded Entertainment. That was the title I came up with. And then, of course, my dear colleagues told me, nobody knows what branded entertainment is. It's just that I'm a nerd and I'm quite interested in it, so I know. So the question of kind of what branded entertainment is, I know it's a huge question, and we don't really have full answers yet. It's still kind of an evolving area. But it is kind of this idea of, okay, people don't watch ads anymore, so we need to place that content, that branded content, in different ways so that people actually engage with it. And the way of doing that is through storytelling on various platforms. So my first question is a very general one, and I'm sure you all have kind of different takes on this, but what is branded entertainment? Who wants to answer that?
Look at me. I knew that was coming. I thought that might be a question. What is branded entertainment? You don't know how many times a day I get asked this question. I'm sure we all do. Branded entertainment is entertainment that people watch regardless of whether or not it is funded by a brand. And I use the entertainment part of that very seriously because branded content I see as something else and product placement something else, but the entertainment is you are actively engaged in something that is entertaining, that takes you on a emotional journey, an entertaining journey. You laugh, you cry, you are engaged with the characters and the story. Branded entertainment can happen, as you said, on multiple platforms. It can be a film, it can be a TV series, it can be a podcast, it can be something that happens in Web3, it can be a piece of art, it can be an influencer based short film, it can be a live event, it can be a book. but the brand has put the money into it. And the brand doesn't always have to appear front of face inside the branded entertainment. They can appear around it. So I'll take, for example, I always quote this because I think it's fantastic and it's worth seeking out. I think it's on Amazon Prime. There's a documentary feature called 5B. And it's about an AIDS ward in San Francisco General Hospital in the 1980s. And it tells the story of the nurses who they bypassed all the stigmas around AIDS at that point, and they were the first people to touch and hug their patients and give them the human warmth they needed. It's fully funded by Johnson & Johnson. Nowhere in the film do you see any Johnson & Johnson products. You see a small credit at the beginning and the end brought to you by Johnson & Johnson. But the power of the film is Johnson & Johnson provide tools and materials for nurses, and they encourage people to train as nurses. And that's the message. The film went to Cannes Film Festival, where it premiered, and then it won the top Grand Prix prize at Cannes Lions, which is the advertising festival. And that was the value for Johnson & Johnson. So there was nothing in the film. Everything was around it. Huge PR. Everywhere you read about this film, Johnson & Johnson funded it. They took away the glory without ever interfering in the entertainment. So that was pure entertainment. So branded entertainment can range from that, without the brand in it at all, to something that has the brand front and centre. And that's okay, because we all know that's how things get funded. And as digital media has exploded, and we've seen people on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram with a cup of whatever in their hand or a bottle of shampoo next to their luscious locks, we know that's how their content got funded. And I don't think, I think maybe 20, 30 years ago in the UK especially, where we've had such strict regulations, that was a problem. But now it's not. And as long as the context is appropriate to the editorial, then it's acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, Finola, is this really something new? Because essentially, there's always been kind of brands in various artistic content. And even if you kind of go back, I mean, even to the kind of medieval times, there was a patron who was paying for, whichever painter to paint a fresco. So
that's a good question. I like your definition a lot because it has clear boundaries. And for me, it's the concept might be a bit new, but the idea is not new. So anyone who's spent more than 12 minutes with me probably has heard me use the same quote because I've done it for years. But when I was doing my PhD, one of the best things I have found was in an archive, there was a speech by Will Hayes from the Motion Picture Association of America. This was in the 1920s, right at the beginning of the film industry. And the Motion Picture Association of America are the industry body that promote the film industry around the world. And he gave a speech and he said, "We'll use the film industry to bring America to the world." And whenever I bring this up, I ask people, do you think that was successful? And usually they say, yeah, it was fairly successful. So from the very beginning, they understood the power of storytelling. And one of the other things that they did in the US was, because the US was a new country with multiple languages, multiple cultural contexts, they used film to tell people how to be American in America. And that was really linked to my PhD project. What does it mean to be European, and, all these kind of things. And so they knew right at the beginning that they were using film as a storytelling power to export the idea of America and the American dream. But the American dream has products at the center. So we all know, people my age, old, saw our first big fridge freezers in an American film. We didn't see them in our houses. We saw people having a particular lifestyle in American films, and how we mimicked that was through access to American products. And if you look at, I could bore people senseless with how, South Korea were threatened by the US to reduce their protection for the film industry because the US wanted to sell more products to South Korea. So we've always had this tension between film as this purely artistic format and film as a way to sell things to people. And we, the reason a lot of kind of big American companies have had financial interest in film studios is because exactly this ability. So in a way, no, it's not new at all. But the kind of, I think what is new and I'm excited about, and it's probably because of people like Sam, is the fact that the storytelling is really prioritized in these new projects. So it is, okay, you can bring the money, but we bring the ideas. And that's what is really good about what's happening when it's done well.
Katerina, maybe you could kind of help in terms of kind of, again, defining branded entertainment, because I know that everybody says, okay, so how is this different from product placement, or how is it different from an advert, or from branded content of various types? So I know the boundaries are still blurry, but how would you kind of distinguish branded entertainment versus the rest?
Yeah, that's an absolute nightmare. I'm not gonna lie. So I would see definitely branded entertainment as a kind of evolution or advancement of product placement. And I'm sure we're kind of all familiar with product placement. So it's a very well-established form of advertisement. Again, like it's paid for by the brand, like if a product or a brand is included. And it integrates kind of marketing communications within an existing cultural artifact. So a film, a video game, music video, and so on. And obviously, if we watch a film, like the product or brand can appear visually, verbally, or a combination of both. And also, it can be integrated at any stage of the production of a film, let's say. So it can be pre-production, mid-production, but also post-production, and it can be kind of exchanged at any time as well, depending on, you know, whether you show the film in the UK or the US or in Japan or whatever in the world. Of course, why do we integrate products? So it's for promotional reasons, to highlight description of characters, or to provide specific elements to a scene. But with branded entertainment, it's really, you know, when we think about the context whereby the resulting cultural artifact itself is a manifestation of an integrated marketing communications. So the brand becomes really integrated, like Sam mentioned, into the storyline. And the basis for branded entertainment is really this kind of storytelling, especially creative storytelling. So it is aimed at promoting a brand, so that the narrative of the entertainment product, so again, like a film, is developed around the prerequisite to promote and position a specific brand. So, and like Sam mentioned, this can be really obvious. I'm sure you are familiar with the Lego movie. I always say that's like an advertisement that's 90 minutes long, but you don't really maybe see it as that. And then we have like kind of more like less obvious cases, like Sam mentioned, the 5B movie, or there's another example where Not an Antivirus did a documentary about cybercrime, and kind of the narrative was kind of how dark the internet is and how dangerous, but their premise was obviously into getting consumers buying antivirus software. And then obviously it's with both product placement and branded entertainment, it's more about the kind of intertwining between advertising and editorial content. But it's really with the main purpose of branded entertainment to achieve brand resonance, so that the consumer really feels in sync in terms of the kind of content they consume. And, you know, how do we connect through storytelling, right? Because we can always identify with different stories based on our own lives, the stories we hear from other people, and so on. And then in terms of other formats, I would say branded content is maybe a more broader term, where branded entertainment falls under, but maybe you disagree.
Well, I've had to redefine that recently, because in the industry, people are starting to call branded content the little segment inside a bigger piece of IP. So say if, you know, we're doing a chat show here, and then I go, and now I'm going to throw to, here I went earlier to see Madame Two Swords, and there'll be a clip. So that's how people are talking about branded content in the industry, that it's the throw to, it's incidental but integrated, but it could never stand alone.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, that's really helpful, because I think the problem is when people just use branded content, anything, because that's not helpful, because you don't really know what you're working with. So that's really a helpful definition.
I've just been hearing that a lot in the last 6 months or so, as people have tried to define the term.
Interesting, yeah.
And a lot of the digital influencer-based stuff is called branded content rather than entertainment, because it's not necessarily entertaining in the same way.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's the missing bit, right? Where we really differentiate, like content can be anything, whereas branded entertainment is something, like you said, that we seek out.
So it's entertaining. Yeah, hopefully. So yeah, you heard branded content here first, right? New definition. Sam, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about what you actually do. Do you kind of overview the whole process from beginning to end, or What?
Gosh, what do I do now? So UTA is a big Hollywood talent agent. The mainstay of their business is looking after creators of big IP in Hollywood. So we look after David Chase, who created The Sopranos. More recently, one of our clients is Mike White, who created White Lotus. And then we do a lot of talent that you'll recognise, from Ben Stiller to Will Ferrell to Dolly Parton to Skepta, so all across the range of music and popular culture. But we've realised that if you're looking after talent, you can also manage brands, consumer brands, as if they were A-list Hollywood talent, and curate their careers in the world of entertainment and culture in exactly the same way as you would curate Benedict Cumberbatch's career. So Benedict Cumberbatch, how does he show up in the right movies, the right TV shows? How does he turn up at Cannes Film Festival? What other talent should he associate with? What other brands should he be partnering with? And all this at UTA is powered by data. So the whole agency is weaponized by data. They have an enormous IQ team, and we track every single talent and every single brand. We use various different tools, plus some bespoke tools, to see how these brands and talent are registering on social, how people are interacting with them, and work out from those algorithms who's going to rise to be the next star. And so we pride ourselves on the fact we can identify a music star just before they're about to pop, because we're monitoring SoundCloud and Spotify and some bespoke tools. So in the same way with a brand, so a brand comes to us and we'll go, okay, this singer here is just about to really hit it big time. Let's put you in their music video. And so my job is to identify those moments at the intersection of culture, entertainment, commerce, and technology where a brand can sit, and find the most opportune partnerships possible that will give the brand the ROI it needs. I mean, we can talk about this, but one of the massive challenges with branded entertainment is ROI. So if you are a brand and you're creating a 30-second commercial, it's really easy to track how well that's done. And the broadcaster will come back and say, this is the demo that watched it, and this is how many eyeballs. And it's always fantastically inaccurate, because it's a very small panel on Nielsen or Barb or Médiamétrie who are monitoring this. But it still gives the brand some robustness. You put a bit of content inside a TV show. How do you measure that? How do you say? So some people go, oh, it was on screen for 3 seconds, and this character who's very positive touched it, and therefore the people who were watching it had a very sympathetic, and you're like... So I think brands need to think about branded entertainment at being right at the top of the funnel, and then, as you said before, having this 360 campaign to activate around it. So then I've watched it on TV, and in the break there's an advert for that brand, and that's my call to action to go and buy it. I've erred from your question completely, which was, what do I do? So I shepherd brands through this world of entertainment. I'll give you an example. I assume everyone in this room has watched White Lotus. What did Jennifer Coolidge drive in season 2? Vespa's our brand. So we gifted the cast and crew some Vespas. You've seen it on every single marketing material. You've seen it in the show. You've seen it name-checked. You've seen it on the poster. And we have a very happy client, because the Vespa was, and Jennifer Coolidge is also our talent, but the Vespa played as big a role as the rest of the talent. So that is a success story.
So essentially, UTA has consolidated, because you have the stars in terms of the celebrities, but you also have the kind of product stars.
Yeah,
and so
exactly
you know
that.
how to kind of fit them together.
Exactly.
So I'm sure it depends on kind of what you're looking at, and it's a case-by-case basis. But what are the kind of factors you look for when you're trying to fit a brand to something?
I mean, you start with the audience. Who does the brand want to reach, and where are they? So is the audience watching on Netflix? Are they a certain demographic? Do they like comedy? You know, and then we can work that out through our data by looking, this is the audience. We'll start with the brand. This is the brand. These are the people that like this brand. They also like these other brands, and they also like these movie stars, and they also watch this platform. and then we can scientifically create those partnerships. And because UTA know all the producers and directors and production designers, they know where to gift the product to the writer's room, gift it to the product designer, or pay for it where it needs to be, so you can really control how the product appears in that piece of entertainment. But it's about exploiting the entertainment network and finding exactly the right distribution point for it to go into, which I've only been there 6 months. I find it fascinating.
What I think is really interesting about that is always, when you're talking about casting people in a film, one of the top tips is we'll make sure they all are represented by the same agency, because then the agents have to fight it out, like who gets top billing, who gets kind of most screen time, who's in the poster, whatever. So this is even better, because then it's like, well, the agents kind of do all the...
Well, we work agnostically, so we'll work with any agency, any talent, any producer, because you've got to have the right solution for the brand.
Okay. I just had this fantasy.
It's nice when it happens.
I had a
that way,
fantasy
yeah.
of, products and actors and all in a room fighting for prominence.
I like that idea. I think there's a series there.
A new reality show, yeah. So the fact that you've moved from Fremantle, which is a kind of traditional media agency, to UTA, I assume says something about the shifting landscape where we're seeing, or are you...
Netflix.
Yes.
So Fremantle, for those of you, it's a production company no one's heard of, but I can see there's an international audience here, and I'm sure in every one of your countries you've had X Factor, or Idol, or Got Talent, or Family Feud, or Price is Right. These are formats that have travelled all around the world historically, and in the old days we could say, here's X Factor, we'll put this brand in it, and we'll take this brand to X Factor Cambodia, X Factor Germany, X Factor France. That doesn't happen anymore because everybody wants to be on Netflix. And I don't know how much you know about the business model at Netflix, but you'll know more. They're incorporated in the Netherlands, so legally they can't put brands in without having a big product placement sign. And when they were a subscription-only model, then they couldn't allow their subscribers to be paying and also be advertised to. So in short, you couldn't put a brand in it. So it killed that part of the business for me. Now Netflix and all the other streamers are now opening up to an AVOD, or advertising supported video on demand system. So let's see where that ends up, because I can tell you now in 2 years they will have legitimised branded entertainment, but on their own terms. So that was why I moved, really. And I also saw the power of talent, because every time a brand would come to me and say, I want to be an X Factor, it wasn't X Factor they wanted, it was Simon Cowell or whoever the host was, and they wanted to be around them and have that bit of stardust. And, we're obsessed with celebrities, and they have such immense power, not only in their movie or TV show, but across all their social platforms.
And I assume UTA also has influencers as well.
Yeah. And esporters and whatever they're called and all of that.
Katerina, maybe you could say a little bit more about the kind of stakeholder relationships and how there's been shifts in terms of those power relationships, because it sounds like now the brands are kind of really driving it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting but also challenging, I would say. Obviously, Sam and I wrote a chapter about it. So obviously we have the brands, we have the agency, we have the talent, the producer. So, sitting at one table can be really, really challenging. And then it's obviously around, who decides what? Is it the brand who dictates? Is it the creative who dictates? What are the stakeholder relationships? And throughout my research, I found out that it's quite complicated. Then obviously there's a lot of issues around IP as well. It really depends. I mean, maybe Sam, you can chip in as well, because obviously...
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. So, and that's what I heard from literally everyone I interviewed for my PhD, that, sometimes it's the brand, but then it was also the brand has this vision, but then the creative is like, no, that doesn't work. That's not branded entertainment. So the brand, I think, is sometimes a bit scared of, giving away control. Whereas then, obviously, they could trust the creative, but then, I think the dialogue and communication, it's really important to set everything at the beginning, because I think if you don't have your kind of, aims and objectives really clearly set at the beginning of creating a branded entertainment project, it's probably bound to fail. Would you agree?
Absolutely. We all know too many cooks spoil the broth, and until we can have, the best projects work when it's a really streamlined relationship and everybody has their corners defined.
Yeah.
Finola, do you want to say a little bit more about Netflix, as that's your expertise?
Well, not really. Just my obsession. Well, yeah, I was kind of. I don't know if I've got a comment or a question, but for me, one of the issues with Netflix is the lack of data flow. So if you, as a producer, have a film on Netflix, you've no idea who watched it, whether they watched it the whole way through. So Netflix knows who watched it, whether they watched it the whole way through, if they abandoned it, at what point do they abandon it, and that helps them to kind of improve their algorithm and so on. But you, as the creator of the content, don't get that information. So I think that's very problematic, because that goes right back to all of the problems independent producers have had for such a long time, is getting data about their audiences. So how does that work with you? Do you get any more information from Netflix?
So Nielsen and Barb are starting to track some parts of Netflix, and so what a lot of people do is they'll use social. So they'll match the talk on social, and they'll have a lot of social listening tools, and they'll marry that with the projected viewership. Mm-hmm. And I think that's about as accurate as they can get. Yeah. And it's not great.
And I suppose the other thing, and I don't want to be anti-Netflix, I'm a fan, and I have many former students who work there and do fabulous work, and many people who I know have had their films on Netflix. But one of the things is, obviously, they produce their own content and then they distribute others' content. And so, for example, I have in the past wanted to watch a specific film that is absolutely the kind of thing I like, and I've had to type in every single word of the title before it shows up in my search. Whereas if it's a Netflix produced content, I don't have to type in every single word. And so that's kind of natural, but again, that's where we got to with the Hollywood studios, was if they produce and they also exhibit and they distribute, of course they give priority to their own work, and that's why we've had loads of regulations around monopolies that have tried to kind of open up the market. So I'm kind of, with the kind of domination of Netflix, I'm a bit worried that we're going to, it's great now, they have a lot of content and it's great, we've loads of choice, but are we going to see this closing the door to a variety of producers? Like, is that something you're worried about?
More so, I think. So if you look at Amazon Prime, that's a really interesting one. So in terms of branded entertainment, you're seeing some brands who are fully funding shows. There's a show called Beer Masters you can look it out for, and it was fully paid for by AB InBev. And when you turn on your Prime, it's going to be right at the top of the carousel with the most expensive Amazon shows there. And it's not because Amazon commissioned it, because they didn't. Beer Masters was put on there with a massive media buy, and so it went right to the top of the algorithm. So that shows the power, whether it's the platform doing it as their own self-promotion, or a brand or even a producer could buy that media to push the piece of content up the algorithm into your top carousel. And it doesn't mean it's good, and it doesn't mean it's even something you're going to like. But yeah, that's a new way of advertising. So in the old days, that would have been called time buy. Mm-hmm. So you'd go to a broadcaster and you say, oh, I'm going to buy this slot from 10 to 10:30 on this cable channel, and I'm going to pay X amount for it. And it's exactly the same, but on a video on demand.
And I guess my worry is, you talked a lot about data driving things, and the problem is that the data implies that we're driven to the things that we like. And so I have a project I've been working on for years called Why We Watch What We Don't Like. I still haven't published it, but anyway, maybe in 20 years. So what we found in our project was that people, if you ask people what's their favorite film, they all know. And then if you track what they're watching, nobody is watching what they like. They're watching what's 90 minutes, or they're watching something they can watch when they're doing their ironing, and so the stuff that we watch the most of is not the stuff that we care about the most. So one of my kind of hesitations around some of the kind of reliance on numerical data is that we don't know what's happening to the people in terms of thrilling them and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
No, I don't disagree.
So In terms of, it's a rapidly shifting environment, these kind of new buzzwords are coming in. If you were to predict, where we'll be in, let's say, 2 years, what are your kind of key predictions, Sam? Where do you think we're heading?
Oh, I hate these questions. Well, I think I've said the streamers are going to open up to branded entertainment. It's going to be all over the place. Every time I'm asked this question, every 2 years I go, we are going to be accepted as the forerunners of advertising, and everyone's going to realise that the people who create branded entertainment are the most proficient people in the industry, instead of just being sidelined. And every 2 years I have to correct myself. It's all down to return on investment and measurement. And until we can create a really robust return on investment model for branded entertainment, it is never going to be as important as it should be in terms of the whole advertising ecosystem. And the lazy planners, at media agencies are going to keep doing the simplest possible old-fashioned solutions by eyeballs, and it doesn't matter if it's a bot in China registering those eyeballs, or whether it's just it just gives the brand some kind of really false sense of security.
So are you trying to kind of find new ways of measuring it, or?
Oh, I don't think that's up to me. I would love some. Look, everyone's been trying, and until we have that, direct pathway between a broadcaster and a viewer, and we know exactly what's going on, we can't do it. But one day we will, because it's impossible that we won't. As you say, we can't live in this kind of blurry world forever.
What about in terms of e-commerce and putting the brands into the content, which is already done, but maybe having particularly if you think of something like Prime, it seems like such an opportunity for them, because they're vertically integrated, to just put their own products inside, and then maybe do the one click, and you can kind of buy it.
Yeah. I mean, they're also using their delivery boxes to advertise their shows. So that's been,
that
done.
I know there's been a lot of research done about the fact you watch something on Amazon Prime and you want to buy it immediately, and some research showed that it takes people 30 minutes to find the sofa or the dress or whatever. So I know Amazon Prime are looking at that. I was talking actually to a travel brand today, and they're doing a new travel show on CNN. And at the end of the travel show, it's on. You get a QR code, and you can download the itinerary that's been in the travel show, and you can buy it just like that, with the hotels, the restaurants, the activities, the excursions. So I think that'll be more and more prevalent. Do we use QR codes is my next question, though. So I love the theory of it, but the practical nature of people actually scanning that QR code in and using it, I'm not sure.
I used one yesterday.
What did you buy?
I didn't buy anything. I used it to try and connect my phone to the TV to get Apple TV, and it didn't work. Yeah, so I didn't use it.
No, exactly.
I attempted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it failed.
It failed.
But do you remember? I mean, you won't remember because you're all too young. Red button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that? Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, that was when you were watching TV and you clicked a red button, and about 5 minutes later, this really clunky teletext thing came up and offered you some in-depth information. It's the same.
So maybe kind of following up on that, what are the kind of key barriers? So we've talked about kind of measuring. That seems to be one of the key barriers. What other key barriers, particularly in terms of legislation, maybe, Katerina?
Yeah, that's a difficult one as well, I would say, because, are you talking about the kind of ethical bits leading into that?
I mean, you could talk wider about the ethics, yeah.
So I think legislation is a funny one, because obviously with product placement, like Sam mentioned, I think we have the P, it's very different across the globe. So, the UK is one of the most difficult countries, I would say, to create branded entertainment, or to kind of push the boundaries in terms of including brands into content. So we usually see this little P when there's product placement in different shows. I don't know, many of you have probably recognized. But with branded entertainment, there's no such thing. So I think also if we think about influencer content, that now you have to kind of integrate who has paid it or sponsored. But yeah, with branded entertainment, I think it's quite challenging. And I interviewed one person for my PhD as well, and he was particularly almost frustrated, I would say, because it's a British television channel, and he was like, we constantly have to push the boundaries in terms of, you know, creating specific content, integrating brands, and we're just really frustrated because, you know, platforms like Netflix, they just get away with it because they don't have these things that they have to kind of adhere to. So I think that's the most challenging bit. Maybe you can follow up, Sam, as well.
I mean, Netflix is sneaky. So I think one thing we haven't covered is the difference between prop placement and product placement. So prop placement is unpaid placement. So that is, you know, I'm a production and I need a car to take place in a scene, and Land Rover give me the car. And they haven't paid me a penny. So I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to do that in a BBC show, as long as I don't give them undue prominence. I can do it in a Netflix show, and I'm not paying anything. However, what I might be doing is paying Netflix a co-marketing budget, the value of my prop placement, to make sure that viewers are going to see that show. So let's take Stranger Things. And you would have seen tons of brands in Stranger Things, from New Coke to Nike to Baskin & Robbins to Burger King. And you've seen them all pop up in the mall in Stranger Things. None of those were paid for. They were all prop placements. But you will have seen fantastic co-marketing campaigns happening around the show, driving viewers to the show and using the IP from Stranger Things. So, yeah.
I don't know if anyone has seen this new film on Netflix, You People. Have you seen it? No? That was really interesting. I watched it last night. It's with Jonah Hill, and it's about like a couple, and they're like culturally differently. So he's Jewish, she's black, and they're trying to kind of introduce themselves to each other's family. And I was just really surprised how many products and brands were placed. And I was like, it was almost to like the extent where I was like, this is just too much. I'm getting.
Was it a Netflix original or an acquisition?
Yeah, Netflix original. Okay.
Because the other way they get around it is they acquire the program by a producer who's already made it. So if you see, I mean, Headspace and Goop to me are branded entertainment, but they're seen as acquisitions. So therefore, Netflix are not responsible for the brand integrations in the show.
No, I'm sure it was an original, but it was like really, a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Goop, because I'm obsessed with Goop, because I just don't understand how that's not branded entertainment. I mean, it's pure
It's
branded
branded
entertainment.
No, I would say it is.
And yet, according to Netflix, it's not, because
I think Gwyneth has some friends high up in Netflix.
when you know Gwyneth, yeah.
Is she watching?
So we've talked a lot about film and TV, but what about other, Sam, do you work across other branded entertainment opportunities as well?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, podcasts are a fantastic platform for branded entertainment nowadays. We've done a little bit in Web3 and with NFTs and how brands, I mean, I don't know if anyone saw the stuff a few years ago with Wendy's popping up in Fortnite. That was really good. They, you had to go into Fortnite, and Wendy's never have frozen meat. It's always fresh, and you had to go and smash up all the freezers with all the frozen meat from the other fast food providers. So, you know, really cute and relevant. So I thought that was brilliantly entertaining. Gosh, you can do it in anything. There's one of my favourite things from the past couple of years was a collection of short stories that Stella Artois commissioned, and I want to say it was called something like In Summer, and it was during lockdown when we weren't allowed to do anything, and so they got a whole load of really cool American short story writers to create a short story based on the theme of summer, and they were recorded as podcasts, and you listen to them and they just, you know, made you feel happy about life and made you want to go out and have a walk and have a beer, but they use literature. And, you know, if you look at what's happening with BookTok on TikTok, and I'm seeing this explosion of literature. So one of my predictions is that over the next couple of years, we're going to see tons of branded literature, which is new and exciting.
Thank you. So I think we will open it up for a Q&A. So you can all prepare your questions now.
Who'd like to ask a question? Hands up.
It's not really a question, but more of a comment. And I've recently been watching Community, and it's only after this talk that I realized, I don't know if you all have watched it, but there's a whole plot line on Honda CRV, and I was just looking it up. And it said that piece of content that they did about Honda CRV lifted the brand recall to almost 95%. So I found it really fascinating about, I mean, I always thought it was product placement, but then I realized that it's actually branded entertainment, because the whole episode revolved around the brand, but also the characters that already exist in the show. So like really interesting way to think about it. So thank you, I guess.
Oh, I'll check that out. Thank you.
But I wonder, is it brand entertainment or is it product placement? So
Or branded content.
yeah. In my definition, it probably isn't, because that's a show that exists and you're putting something into it. Whereas for me, brand entertainment is much more about you create a story, an original kind of story.
You can hijack IP
Yeah.
with brand entertainment,
Yeah.
actually. So if you did an episode of Queer Eye and you took it over and it was all about
Yeah. Then that would
your
also,
brand, that could be really entertainment in its own right.
Yeah.
I think it's a fine line again,
That's where
right?
these
Because
boundaries
it's
are
like
somewhere.
when we discussed the other day James Bond, is it branded entertainment or is it all product placement in there, right? And then is it a bit of both?
Yeah. I say it's product placement because the James Bond brand is stronger than any of the products. I've not seen Community there, so.
Community is good. It's funny.
Yeah, I'm interested in this feeling that, the difficulty of measuring the effect of branded entertainment, and this feeling that, I need to be able to see that it had an effect. But I was quite amusing. I used to work in advertising, so the idea that you could track ROI on advertising, particularly, filmed advertising, it seems like an impossibility there as well. But I really want to just get your views on whether actually the best conversions are the ones where you air something and then you can see so that somebody bought something. Because it seems that in a lot of cases the strongest persuasion comes as as it drips away, and if the consumer's aware that they saw something and then they bought it, is that really the most convincing way to do? And what always strikes me is I love watching film. If you watch films from the 40s, say American films from the 30s, 40s, 50s, they're all smoking cigarettes the whole time. At every point of where they've got to do some daring do, they share a cigarette first and then they go do it. Now, that was piling away. Undoubtedly, I'm sure that was the American, tobacco industry was piling money in. But the reason that was so effective was that it wasn't apparent. So do we really want the trigger point to be apparent?
I don't think it has to be apparent, and that's the subliminal nature of advertising, isn't it? I'm thinking about James Dean with a cigarette in his mouth. It's the epitome of cool teenagehood. So, yeah, I think sometimes it's you take it away and you don't realise that you've even been advertised to. You can't measure it. You can't measure it. Yeah, it depends what you're measuring, whether you're measuring on conversion or just eyeballs. And I've never worked in a media agency and I never will, but I think that's their problem.
Any more questions?
Thanks. Yeah, kind of in the same vein. We've been talking mostly about attention and top of the funnel and so on. Have you seen anything that goes closer to sort of intention and to point of purchase, or sort of that sort of lower part of the funnel, or for those who are into customer journeys, getting closer to the point of purchase, right?
No, I think my only example, the example I think is really good is the most dangerous 10 on the internet. So this was Norton antivirus. That was the only marketing spend they did that year. So there they could demonstrate, if that's the only marketing spend they had, and they had a massive uptake in people buying their product as a result, then they could demonstrate that. But I think that's very radical. Like, I don't think many brands would be willing to do nothing but one branded entertainment campaign.
And also the example you just had with the travel show, right, with the QR code, and then you go straight to, but it looks like they need to sort of come up with more of these, sort of different parts of the funnel kind of opportunities.
So I'm working with a brand called Ancestry, and you'll know them because you'll see them around shows like Who Do You Think You Are, and My DNA Journey, and The Secrets in My Family, My Secret Family Revealed, etc. So that's a really interesting brand because storytelling is at the heart of the brand. And I challenge any of you to watch one of those shows and not think afterwards, gosh, I really need to do my DNA, or I wonder what my family tree's got in store. A 30-second ad is never going to do that. But if you put the 30-second ad in the break of the Who Do You Think You Are, DNA Journey, I can promise you that will seal the conversion because, this is how I do it. I'm just going to, go and buy this. So that combination of emotional storytelling through a TV program and then advertising around it or taking those clips onto social, I think is extremely effective.
Right, thank you.
Hi, I'm curious about this dilemma of mine, and I would like to know your opinion on an aspiring actor who wants to get into the industry, first without an agent, or it's better to be in a movie and then find an agent afterwards. Because it's kind of a catch-22 thing. If you don't have an agent, it's hard to be in the movies, but if you want an agent, you have to be in the movies. So what's your take on that?
Well, I know nothing about the talent side of my agency, I'm afraid, so I'm probably not the right person to answer that question. I'm really sorry.
No worries.
I mean, for me, it's like, quite a while ago. But so I think it was very mixed. So we had castings kind of regularly, but like I was working for like a kids and youth agency, but also like kind of young youth, so everyone plus 18. So sometimes we would scout. So I don't know if you do theater and stuff, there would be actors, but usually it's good, I think, or helpful if you go and introduce yourself to different talent agencies, because I think the chances are just higher that, you get placed into movies or films or theater.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to just invite people, like as much as possible, to work that you're doing, or send them your if you make a short or whatever, you send them that. But I think a friend of mine who was an agent said, if someone invited her to see them and she didn't think they were very good, she would say something like, "I really like your shoes," because she wanted to say something nice but didn't want to insult their. So if somebody says that to you,
I'll try.
And have a strong show reel, I would say.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for the conversation, ladies. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
It sounds like what you've discussed so far is about brands, recognized brands that have money, that have backing behind them. But I'm wondering, at what point will niche brands be able to enter brand and entertainment? Are we gonna see it first online with YouTube and then gradually move on towards TV shows and films, or it's never gonna happen? It's just gonna be the brands, they're gonna exist.
So if you're a nascent brand, I don't think brand entertainment is the best way to launch your brand to start with. I think there's other comms that are more effective, because you blink and you miss it. And if you don't know what the brand is, it's more than a blink, and you'll still miss it because there's no recognition in your brain about what that brand is. If it's a niche brand, and they haven't got tons of money, there's ways of self-publishing, and sometimes you will create content that will, to use that horrible word, go viral. But a lot of the time you're seeing brands with money putting a media campaign behind those viral hits, and that's what's powering the journey. So the answer is it's costly. And if a brand without money is going to find it a lot more challenging than a brand with money.
Thank you. I said to the presenters that I tried to think about a hard question or a mean question. But I also like, Chloe, your questions. Often I'm the only geek in the room when it comes to definitions and defining something. But I believe if we want to do proper research or teaching the next generation of talent, we need to define what we're actually wanting to teach. So my challenge would be maybe a little bit linked to the talent that is up and coming. Do you see examples that creatives, producers, actors, talent say, I don't want to work with these brands? So is there an ethical conundrum that we are pushing brand and entertainment? And I'm a marketer and marketing educator, but are there instances where you would say we push it too far? And people complaining about, oh, I want to watch a movie without product placement, for example.
I mean, back from my work at a talent agency, I'm still in touch with them, and what I can see is like actors are kind of forced to do that, but also branded entertainment is often so well produced. It's cinematic. It's like it's very well produced, and we see that like the White Lotus shows, like, you know, that are produced. They're like such high content. So they enjoy it as well from a creative side. And then in terms of ethics, that's obviously a difficult question, right? Thanks for that. So I think it's a notion of responsibility, right? So again, like we know from research, there's a lot of stuff around consumer responsibility. So having the assumption that we as consumers are educated enough to understand that we're watching something that has product placement in there, for example. I mean, we have the little P that should help us understand. But when we watch stuff like branded entertainment, like often it gets around what we call persuasion knowledge. So we don't understand an ad, like we can't really analyze it and we can't really make sense of it. And then obviously, you know, that is where we are manipulated and kind of influenced, and there's this deception. And throughout my interviews, so I interviewed branded entertainment practitioners like Sam across the field, from like media agencies, television channels, and so on. And what I found really interesting, it was like this kind of notion around shifting the responsibility. Oh, it's not me, it's the brand. Oh no, it's the producer. Oh no, that's not, you know. So I think, yeah, there's this notion of like, okay, you know, what does that mean? Like, is it the consumers? Is it the producer? Is it the brand? So I think that's something I'm currently working on as well. So, but I think it's very interesting, like that no one really feels responsible.
Although Katarina and I had a project that we had to abandon because of the pandemic, but this was kind of working with like producers and brands to think about what projects they could work on together. And in the workshop that we did manage to do before we all went home and locked ourselves up, there was a real clear line for the producer. So these were producers who normally produce film or TV or whatever, and they were kind of clear, like no guns, no alcohol. No, I mean, they had, I suppose we call them the wicked industries, gambling. They were kind of clear, we don't want to make shows that support the wicked industries, because if people don't know what they are, then that's really ethically dubious. But then, of course, I wasn't giving them money as a gambling company to make a super cool film. So maybe if I came with my bag of money, they would make one.
And documentaries. So I think you have to be really careful with documentaries funded by brands, because these are true stories, and they shouldn't be unduly influenced by a brand's agenda.
Just as an extension to the question and the answers, how does culture play into the branded entertainment? With globalization in the mix and digitization blurring lines and the reach being much more than it was before, are there any backlashes you face as a brand, or is it adapted and adopted smoothly? for the brand deck? Yeah.
That one for me. Is there backlash? Yes, of course there's backlash. There's some terrible examples of branded entertainment. Globalization, you're right, there's no such thing as something that always works globally, and things have to be locally sensitive and resonant in that culture, and it can be disastrous. So Netflix has created something really interesting in terms of a global platform. And 10 years ago, you never would have thought that would exist, and yet it's happened. And they've created content which has resonated all around the world. And look at Squid Game. Who would have thought? So yes, there is this. Suddenly, we have a global consumption of culture, and I think brands have to be really sensitive about how they crop up globally instead of locally. There's a fantastic piece of branded content I saw from India in 2017, and it was for Vicks. And I don't know if anyone here has seen it. It was about a transgender prostitute who reared a street child, and already very contentious subject matter. And as part of looking after this kid and helping them grow up, when they had a cold, she put some Vicks on the child's chest. And that was all you saw of Vicks. But it was this beautiful story, which only just worked in India because it was so edgy. But there's so many countries it just did not translate to. But it won tons of prizes because it broke barriers. And that's what brands can sometimes do in cultures. They can, like you were talking about importing America to the rest of the world, but changing perceptions, changing the way we think about our cultural environment, just enough not to offend, but to move the dial on in terms of purpose.
And also I think it depends, when you think about it, like going back to Sam's definition at the beginning, something entertaining. What's kind of interesting is about what travels. So another one of my many abandoned projects. I like to do talks like this because I can talk about all the things I haven't published. But anyway, I did a project we still haven't finished, with a colleague in Taiwan. And we were really, that's not where we started, but we ended up looking at which Taiwanese films travel out and which don't. And the kind of firm conclusion was, when the producers of a film wanted to reach an international audience, they probably didn't. And when the producers of the film made a film for themselves, international audiences wanted to watch it. And that was because this is a real, authentic story. And if I want to watch a Taiwanese film, I probably want to know more about Taiwan. I don't just want a car chase down the center of Taipei. So I think then, and we saw that when people started illegally pirating content, they were looking for good stories around the world. And that was, I hate pirating because I want to pay artists, but I loved pirating because all of a sudden the distributors who said, oh, only like 12-year-olds want to watch this content in whatever, they need to speak the language, they were pushed away and people found stuff that they really liked. And then since then we've seen kind of the industry have to be a bit kind of, broader in terms of what people like. So I love that. But the other thing is that we don't recognize the brand. So like I remember I saw, this is going back to product placement, there was a Taiwanese film that was really controversial because it was absolutely full of product placement and all my Taiwanese friends were talking about it. But when I watched it, I was like, I didn't really see that much because I only recognized about 5 brands in the whole thing because I'm not from Taiwan. So I think there's that thing about things can travel as entertainment, but maybe they're not doing the job of the branded bit. I don't know. It's a very long answer, sorry.
I've got a very simple question for the panel and for the audience. Could I have a show of hands who's ever watched a program on TV or a film that wanted more information or wanted to buy that product? Okay, so it's probably the majority.
What about you?
So I think we believe we all talk a lot about how sneaky the company Netflix is, but I'm still curious if that is always serves as a tier 1 target that the brand wants to target, because of the reason that the fact that because of algorithm, we don't necessarily see what we want to see. Then how do you navigate through that what brand really want to communicate through the things that you want? Sorry. Yeah.
So quite often, the shows with the most brands in are not in season 1. So, White Lotus, that was season 2. Stranger Things, it was season 2 when all the brands started to crop up. So a brand is watching and it's going, okay, this is culturally relevant, and so they're putting the brands into the second season when they already know they have a dedicated global audience. So that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is showing us, what Katrina said earlier, this whole idea of persuasion model, right? There is out there, this notion that, viewers have a sense of what they're willing to accept and what they're going to be rejecting. And a lot of what we're seeing in the examples that you guys just talked about is this notion of, starting to, in a way, reject or at least cope. In persuasion model theory, we talk about coping, and we're seeing some evidence, I think, from what you're telling us of this coping mechanism of just starting to say, okay, enough, okay, because these are brands I recognize too much, so I'm not willing to, to put up with it, or this is going a little too, there are too many brands, or one question I was going to ask you is about Emily in Paris. Is Emily in Paris like one giant branded entertainment show?
Do you know how many brands I get calling me up going, can I be in Emily in Paris?
Right.
I don't know if anyone saw season 2 with the Mukbang episode. Oh my God. So that is how not to do branded entertainment. I thought it was dreadful. But what phone does Emily use? Does anyone know? Samsung. So that didn't work, did it?
Yeah, but that's really interesting, because I remember, because I'm old, Gossip Girl. So Gossip Girl, they used Motorola. No, was it Motorola? No, they used Nokia. And I mean, when I was watching it, I was like, no, they don't. As if they, as if they would have that phone. And it just ruined the whole thing for me, because I think that's the thing, that they're characters. So if they're not authentic in the show, they can really, it can really backfire.
But that, Samsung paid a good 6-figure number to go into that show, and the fact none of you even realised it was a Samsung is...
It probably works subliminally, though.
Obviously not.
Any more questions? Hands up. Oh, one more.
So when you have brands approaching you to do or insert them in branded entertainment, what is usually the main goal of the brand? Is it awareness? Is it that resonance? And also, how do you, what are the main factors you consider when finding the right moment to drop a brand in so it doesn't feel too forced or obvious?
They want to be part of culture. So it's not just being in the show, it's about being in the show that everybody's talking about. And, that's going to be discussed on other platforms and other media. Managing that is working very closely with the writers and the producers to make sure that the brand is sensitively inserted into the show. No one wants a clunky, apart from Darren Star, a clunky insertion into their TV show. They want it to feel seamless and integrated. As an agency, we will work very closely to say it should appear only in the hands of this character who's sympathetic with the brand values, and it should be, at this point at the beginning of the episode rather than at the end, to make sure that the value is achieved. So it's science, not just luck.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. So my question is about the artistic world, like the movie directors, painters, musicians, everything. Like, how do they welcome this branding entertainment thing? Because they kind of live in their own bubble, in their own artistic world. So when a branding marketing things are like approaching them, how do they react to it?
I don't know. I just know that a number of years ago there was an event at BAFTA that was looking at brand entertainment, and they talked. I mean, this I don't know how many years ago. It's a long time ago, and they were saying one of the biggest problems was not that, say, filmmakers were resistant. They just didn't know the right people to connect them, and kind of. So I teach film producers, and I have done for 20 years. Most of them would bite the hand off a brand who would fund them to make a creatively interesting project. So it's not that they're like, I'll sell my soul and sell your pair of trainers or whatever, but they're like, I really need to make these really great stories, and if I can find someone who thinks it's a good idea to give me money, then brilliant. I don't know.
Well, you know, I think it's twofold. One is, if you're on a commercial broadcaster, who's paid for the content? The people who have sold the ads. But I will tell you a story. I work with some post-production product placement companies. So Katerina mentioned that as a solution. So what you'll have is you'll have a finished program or a movie, and then companies can insert, like it's often very in the background. So it might be a poster at a bus shelter, or it might be, you know, nobody's touching that brand. It's really, really in the background, and then the brand gets into the content. So I was working with the producer, and I said, look, we've got this opportunity, and it was actually a bus shelter in a TV show. We could put a poster with the brand on this empty bus shelter. And he went, oh my goodness. He said, the director will die. He said, look at the care in which they've set up this shot. And I was quite astounded, because it was on a commercial TV channel and it was surrounded by advertising every 8 minutes because it was on in America. So, yeah.
Yeah. Because they had already made it. They had been paid.
They had been paid, and you know, it's not theirs anymore. It's the distributors, and Amazon Prime actually have a department called virtual product placement. And when you submit your film there, they'll call you up and they'll say, okay, we've got these opportunities across the show. We've gone through your film, and at these time codes, we think we can put virtual product placement in, and our list of product placements are X, Y, Z. Are you happy? And the producer can say yes or no, and the producer gets 50% of the money.
Yeah,
it's a choice.
There's this other company called Marriott, I think, right? And they're also very prominent. So you can take a banner in the background like this, you know, or even like if someone holds a cup, it can be suddenly branded and it can be adapted to any country, like I said in the beginning, which is quite fascinating.
Any more? Okay.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for sharing all of these insights. So my question is about social media. We have talked mostly about movies and TV shows, but I was wondering, like, what's the place of branding entertainment in social media today? Because sometimes I've seen like a few influencers doing some videos, like where it was like, I mean, I think I would say that it was kind of a story, and at some point you had a brand. So is it more about product placement, or do you think there's a place also for branding entertainment on social media? Thank you.
I think it's rare that something called branded entertainment is on social media. Again, I call that branded content, product placement, because you kind of watch it slightly passively, and you don't get that involvement that you might get with entertainment as such. But please, contradict me if.
I think it's quite challenging because of the way influencers negotiate their deals. So the kind of deals you have in an influencer are very prescriptive about what you're supposed to do. And so I think it's pretty, and also I mean, I don't know, some of you could be very talented influencers, but they're not necessarily storytellers in that way. So yeah, I don't know, when you started talking, I was wondering, were you going to talk about web series, which are really good forms of brand entertainment, or Chloe's obsession, TikToks? Because, I mean, again, I don't think they have the story arc. I think they're more, too short.
But maybe we're just old-fashioned.
Yeah, we're like, I'm old.
I'm old too.
Yeah. You're less old, but, you know.
Okay, one last question, anyone? Who wants to take the last one? Anyone? You're all thinking about having a glass of wine? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so it just leaves me to, yes, tell you that there will be wine and canapes outside. So feel free to kind of discuss any controversy that has come out of this talk. To thank the panel for their time and their wonderful insight into what is a kind of very topical area of research and practice. I'm going to do a little bit of shameless promotion. Bless you. Which is, Finola and I have co-edited a book called Marketing the Arts. You'll see the flyers kind of around if you are interested in buying it. There's a brilliant chapter in it by Sam and Katerina, who co-authored on the latest in branded entertainment. So there's a 20% discount if you take a flyer.
Well, if you buy it.
If you buy it, of course, you have to buy it. So that's the shameless promotion. But please join me in thanking, well, the center, first of all, for hosting us, but also our three wonderful talent on the panel. So you've had the story, and you've had, hopefully, we've had the attention. And we just have some branded content of our own to give you as a thank you. So, and you feel free to go out for a drink. Thank you very much.